It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
Well, the big headline, the tariff and trade wars again this week, and could we be heading toward a recession now? Some economists say we have a 40% chance of some kind of economic downturn, so that's where we start positively this week on our Sunday Watts on Wealth radio show. Hi, this is Ralph Hipp, and Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation is here this Sunday morning sharing some simple steps that might preserve your money if the market takes another big dive. Boy, it's been another heck of a week and a heck of a month. But Barry, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Ralph. Thanks so much for asking. Glad to be back on the show with you today.
Hey, before we get into all this nitty-gritty stuff, I was thinking of my granddaughter when we go to the park and she sits on the swing. Push me, Pop, push me. So I'm pushing, push higher, and we're going where she's practically at the top and about to fall down. I was thinking of the markets with that, getting that swing going a little too far on one side or the other. And I know
you remember when we were kids and we go to the park and you push them, you push so high that there'd be some slack in the chain then at the top.
Yeah, and then it goes back the other way, and then
it snap the other way.
We're going this way. But you're thinking about Six Flags over Wall Street, I understand, with the volatility.
Well, Ralph, where I think we've been in the markets right now is just with all this volatility. My goodness. You know, we basically, it's unheard of to see the market go up 8.5%, 9%, 10% in one day, or to lose 10% in 2 days. And we had that both happen in recent weeks. And that's just volatility, and volatility is not the retiree's friend. It is the investor's friend. There's a lot of money to be made in the markets through volatility, but when you're retired, you're usually done with that. And the reason I call it Six Flags over Wall Street is, Six Flags over in St. Louis has got, at one time they had the Screaming Eagle, the world's largest roller coaster, or something of that effect. And the point is, retired folks are done with roller coasters. I'm done with roller coasters, and I'm not retired. I'm in my early 60s. You are retired. I'm guessing you may be done with roller coasters. There are a few old guys that still like to ride them. But my advice to retirees is, stick with the merry-go-round. Hold the grandkids on the little pony on the merry-go-round, ride it up and down, but let's not be on the roller coaster anymore. I don't need to be screaming because I'm on the Screaming Eagle with my retirement money, and that's where we've been right now. And so we're doing everything we can in our practice to dampen that experience for our clients.
I'm not much of a screamer. I don't do roller coasters, but if I were, Barry, I would not be a screamer. I get physically ill. And let's talk about that part of it. People may be just physically ill seeing how low the market has gone. And we did have a big a buyback in day a week after Liberation Day, and the market was up and up big. But are people angry about this, or do they feel, no, I think President Trump is doing the right thing. He's going to disassemble and reassemble to work on not only our deficit, but these trade deficits. So do you think people around the Ozarks, are they physically ill, or they're angry, or they're feeling
There's
good about
every
it?
Sort of emotional answer to that question, Ralph. I think most people that we talk to who are our clients are in pretty good stead because they know that we watch this carefully. And indeed, as the markets started to tumble, we moved from being in demand to being in supply, and we moved over to cash with our positions. And so we basically took ourselves out of the volatility and said, we're not going to participate in that volatility. That's what we do when we're facing something like this. But some people like to ride it out, and they think it's just part and parcel of the process, think they have to ride it out. It's not true. You don't have to ride it out. And people don't understand that they have an alternative and that there are ways to manage your money to where you don't have to experience that. As far as people blaming Trump, I think we all probably blame Trump, but, or maybe we should say some blame and some give him credit, because I think it's the right thing to do most likely. I say that because I don't know what I don't know about the effect of tariffs and what that does long term. But the process makes sense to me. Now, if you're an anti-Trumper, it just gives you something else to be mad about, angry and fussy, and we do see some people who are that way. But for the most part, the clients that we see, when we talk about the political side of it, they all say, I like what he's doing. I think it's the right thing for the country, and I understand it's a little bit hard right now. And truly, if you have the right kind of all-weather portfolio constructed, as our clients pretty much do, well, then you can live with this without a lot of fear and trepidation. So it doesn't stoke that kind of anger. I think the people who are angry, Ralph, are mostly people who will be susceptible to being anti-Trump. I think the people who understand how the markets and the economy work and who understand just how money works realize that we were on an unsustainable course, and this is a part of the medicine that we have to take to restore ourselves to sustainability. And I'm hopeful that this is only a brief experience that will be resolved in a matter of weeks or months.
We hope this is not a big swing, a big roller coaster ride for you, but you'll feel a lot more confident about it. We really encourage you to text the word visit today. Don't wait. Even before you go to church, text visit to Barry, 417-200-3500 at the Wealth Care Corporation, right there at Highway 65 and Battlefield Road. Boy, when I first moved to Springfield, there was nothing out there, Barry. And, when you look around, man, that the area where you are, all people and populated. So a lot going on out there, including the Wealth Care Corporation. But get with Barry, 417-200-3500. Barry, there is some analysis going on. President Trump is, he's taken a sledgehammer to the way things are, and with their people in the Ozarks said, no, this is a good thing. The piece that I was looking at was he's tearing things apart, but does he have a plan? Are we going anywhere? Does he have an idea of how to put things back together? Does he have some place that he's going on this? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can't speak for the president, obviously. My belief, Ralph, is that we allow the markets to do what the markets do. And the problem is the government has gotten so involved in manipulating the markets and manipulating the interest rates and manipulating the market supply, or the money supply, I should say, that all of this government manipulation, when you manipulate it to the left, well, then you have to know when to manipulate it back to the right. And when you manipulate it to the up, you got to know when to manipulate it to the down. If you will let the free markets take care of it, the free markets will manage themselves. That is the free markets ideology to which I personally subscribe. The problem is we've got so much government intervention that now we're having to unwind that. And unwinding that is why it gets ugly. And that's why we have the tariffs as a part of unwinding how our trade has been handled and manipulated over the years. I'm a big free markets guy. Let the marketplace take care of itself.
Absolutely.
And if the marketplace takes care of itself, I think we will all be fine. But, we've become soft in America, Ralph. We like to be taken care of, and we want government to have a solution to every problem, real or perceived. And the result is we've gotten more government than we can afford and more government than we can enjoy. And I think what we're doing right now is we're in the process of unwinding that government. So you ask about Trump's plan. I'm hoping that his overall plan, and I believe this is consistent with what he said, I'm hoping that his overall plan is just to return us to a time of a free marketplace, a free economy, freedom from government intervention in our lives. Let people live their lives. That's the plan. That is the only right plan. And it's amazing to me how people don't want that. It's amazing to me how they want intervention in their lives. And I think that's irresponsibility. If you'll think about how our country was founded, the people who came here when there wasn't anything, the people who settled the United States, well, they didn't have government support. They didn't have anything to fall back on. They only had themselves to rely on. And I can't imagine how hard that life must have been. But they did have their community to rely on, and that built strong communities. And perhaps a part of the degradation we see in society and the way we relate to each other could be because we're all depending on Big Papa, the government, to take care of us instead of just depending on each other and living in our communities. And so perhaps I articulate a rosy time in the past that will not be reachieved. But what else do I have to do? I mean, I think that's the only hope. I think that's what we have to restore ourselves to. And I think trying to live in this well-centralized, planned kind of world, I think it just doesn't work because the centralized planning in Washington, what they need in New York is a lot different than what they need in Southwest Missouri and in what they need in Los Angeles. And so you can't have centralized people doing the planning. Centralized planning just doesn't work. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of places. And that's what Trump and the people who support him, like Congressman Burleson, are trying to unwind.
Barry, people around the Ozarks, they're writing it out. We mentioned on a recent show, I don't know if it's so severe as they're sticking their head in the sand and hoping this will all blow away. But can you talk about the people, they just want to wait and think it over? And I know you have one lady in particular had her own strategy of like a third and a third and a third. right now?
Well, we had people, Ralph, who were in the process of onboarding with our time this hit, and literally in the week ahead of onboarding with our firm, they punched pause and they said, well, I don't know about this market. I want to wait and kind of see what's going to happen. Well, since that time, they've lost about 15% of their assets is what's happened. It's evaporated. And the point is, it wouldn't have evaporated if they'd used a protected principal strategy, which is what they said they wanted. So I think this sit and wait it out. Now, there isn't any waiting it out. We don't wait things out. We take the appropriate action. There's a time to be invested when the markets are in demand, and we're in. There's a time to be out, and when we are at that time, we're out. So we make the decisions that need to be made rather than just riding. Now, I did have a lady say to me recently, she heard me talking about protected principal, and she sent me an email, and she said, Barry, she said, I don't need your protected principal concept. I have a wonderful plan. She said, my plan is to have 1/3 in cash, 1/3 in bonds, and 1/3 in the stock market for growth, and that plan will work wonderfully over time. Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about that. I don't know what this lady does for a living, what her experience is, but first of all, cash, CDs, things like that, historically, over the past 20 years, have not kept pace with inflation. So with the cash portion of her portfolio, she is losing purchasing power every month. So I don't know how that's going to work. So there's 1/3 of it not working for her. Now, she said she had 1/3 in cash. She had 1/3 in bonds. All right. Bonds may work well at a given moment in time, but we had people just come through 2022, 2023, early part of 24, who lost as much as 30% in bonds. Now, those weren't our clients. Our clients didn't own any bonds during that time. But we had people who lost as much as 30% in bonds because they'd been put into them in their 401k plans, in their target date funds, and so forth. Interest rates rose, the value of existing bonds fell, so the bonds they were holding in their retirement plans went to lower value. And we did have one guy ready to retire, lost 30% of his retirement just because of the way bonds moved. So is having bonds, is that really the secret to a good portfolio, having 1/3 of it in bonds? So we have 1/3 that's not performing in cash. We have 1/3 that can eat our lunch in bonds because it can move against us. And then we have 1/3 in the market, and we know what's happened in the market lately. I don't think our strategy works. I think a protected principal strategy where you can grow if the market grows, but you're protected against loss if the market loses. I think that makes a lot more sense. And that is what we're encouraging people to implement always, not just in a time like this. That's how we normally build portfolios, Ralph. And then when we run into a time like this, those portfolios really shine.
All right, so that's what we're talking about here, protecting your principal. Barry, we'll take a break. We'll talk more about that in just a moment here. Friends, don't go anywhere. Along with J. Barry Watts, your main retirement wealth designer at Springfield's Wealthcare Corporation, I'm Ralph Hipp. The show is Watts on Wealth. We'll be back in just a moment here. Don't go away.
Concerned about your retirement plans? Barry Watts can guide you to a confident retirement. Set up a meeting by texting VISIT to 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealthcare Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through Wealthcare Asset Management, LLC.
Picture your first day of retirement. What does it look like? Let's make that dream a reality. Start with Barry Watts' Wealth Care Kit. It includes vital information on the biggest retirement challenges. To get your kit, text KIT to 417-200-3500. That's KIT to 200 3500.
Welcome back in this beautiful Sunday morning in the Ozarks. This is Ralph Hipp with Barry Watts, and you are with us on the radio show Watts on Wealth. Don't forget to scan around the TV channels as you wake up on Sunday morning. We're on all the Springfield TV channels and watching our TV program along with listening to the radio, especially in 2025, this wild and crazy year. You'll have a good handle on where to go with your investments and your financial future. Barry, you were discussing protecting our principal, one of your basic concepts. Let's discuss that more in our major topic of the day. Can you tell us why it's so important to protect our principal, that we find some way to get protected income in this retirement we're going into?
Well, Ralph, when you retire because you're done working. You don't want to go back to work. You don't want to continue working. And or if you're going to work, you want to work at something totally different. Maybe you would enjoy. You spent all your years as a heart surgeon or a heavy equipment operator, and you would enjoy sitting down at Silver Dollar City making balloon animals and handing out candy to kids. That could be kind of fun, I suppose. I thought I always wanted to be the tram driver or the guy back in the back of the tram who, after we load them up, always says, "Driver, when you're ready." And my girls, when they were little bitty, they used to think that their favorite ride at Silver Dollar City, when you ask them, is they would say, "Oh, the tram." They really loved the tram. So where am I headed with that story? It's simply this. You don't want to have to work as a tram driver at Silver Dollar City in retirement. You don't want to work unless you just want to. You don't want to have to go back to work. And the only way to do that is to be sure and protect a portion of your money. So we ask people, we draw a little picture of a storm, a tornado attacking a house, and we talk about how if you've got yourself down in the basement, you're safe from the storm, but if you're up in the upper floors, you could be blown away in the storm. And we just ask them, what percentage of your assets do you prefer to have down foundation inside the concrete protected from the storm? And then we let people tell us, and we get all kinds of answers. Some people want, I want all of it down there. Well, no, you don't really want all of it down there. You can't do that. You're actually legally not allowed to put it all in those kinds of places. And some of them will say, well, I don't want any of it down there. I think maybe you want to consider that. And so we have people come in at 20 and 30 and 50% and 70%. And then one of the things we do is we say, okay, so let's say you got 50% of your money in protected principal. What that means is when the market goes up, you get to participate in the market up to some level. And when the market goes down, the worst you can do is zero, meaning you just get your principal back. So your return is always going to be zero to positive, somewhere in there. And then we take the amount of money that you've got in protected principal and we divide that by how much income you need to withdraw out of your account each month. And that, of course, is a part of our whole income planning process using the sitting on the porch number to figure out how much you need hitting your bank account each month. And so we can do a little math and we can figure out how many years worth of income you have in protected principal. And we're seeing people lately who have 25 and 30 years of retirement income already set aside in protected principal. So what that means, Ralph, is when we hit a time when markets are turbulent like this, sloshing around a whole lot, these people have got money in the markets as well, but they don't have to be scared about that money because it's going to be 25 or 30 years before they need to touch that money. Instead, they're going to be drawing out of their protected principal all this time. And I bet 25 or 30 years from now, the markets are likely to be far higher than they are today. And they'll probably have a really nice nest egg then they can use to replenish their protected principal once they get it spent. To spend it for at least 10 years, many of them 15, 20, and 25 years. And that's the way we like to help design retirement plans. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be tense and wonder. You can rest confident that next month's check is going to be in the bank just like it's supposed to. And you can be busy doing the things you want to do, like catching crappie, baking cookies with grandkids, going on vacations, playing pickleball, whatever your thing happens to be.
Barry Watts at the Wealth Care Corporation. That number, text the word visit today. Also text the word book right now, B-O-O-K, text book to get a copy of his book to 417-200-3500. Barry's got the 6 steps to retirement confidence. And in your book, Watts on Wealth, Barry, how would the book be I don't mean to trivialize this, your book could be a real Bible for us right now this year with everything going on.
Well, I would be reluctant to call it a Bible just because I kind of think the Bible has a little special.
It does.
Special.
How about like
you know?
an owner's manual? We'll call it that.
Okay. I'm satisfied with that. So how do we use this? Well, it talks about my book, What's on Wealth, which is about 140 pages long. You know, it's a good couple hours read if you just sat down and wanted to read it from soup to nuts. It talks about all the things that you face in retirement. In fact, one of the early chapters talks about longevity and the fact that people are living longer than they had planned to, and in some cases longer than they've saved enough money to. Ralph, we had a case come in this past week where the lady, they've only got about $100,000 saved for retirement. They're about 60 years old, and they're planning on working until she's 80 years old.
Wow.
Now, she's a real estate agent. So a lot of those kind of folks do work a little longer because they can and they just enjoy working. She has to work that long. And if she gets sick or disabled and can't work, or if she should die or whatever it happens to be, then her income is going to be gone and they're going to crash financially. And it's because they didn't deal with the importance of planning, which is the very beginning of the book, and they didn't deal with the issue of longevity. But we talk about taxes and volatility. That's another topic. Retirement income and how to plan for Social Security and 401ks and annuities. All of those are things that we talk about in my book, What's on Wealth. And we would love to send a copy of that book out to anyone who would like a copy. All you have to do is just text the word book, B-O-O-K, to 417-200-3500. If you'll text the word book, B-O-O-K, to 417-200-3500, we will send you out an autographed copy of What's on Wealth.
Barry, also, we've got a lot of craziness going on right now. We discussed whether people are fearful or they're very, very confident. Let's ride the ride and let's ride it out and get to where we want to be. And I know you want to help us understand whether or not our retirement income now and later on will be protected. What are some common places we might put our retirement money that are not protected? And there are some little potholes and sinkholes where our money would drop down, especially with things going on the way they are right now.
Well, Ralph, you mentioned the phrase ride it out, and I hear that a lot from people. Well, I think I'll just ride it out. Baloney. I'm not riding it out. That's not what we do. That's not an appropriate strategy. Let me explain to you why. You may or may not the Nikkei index, which is I call it the S&P 500 for Japan. The Nikkei index started falling in the 1980s, and it fell precipitously, losing, the vast majority of its value, and it took over 30 years for it to come back. I believe it was 34 years before it came back. Now, my first question to you is, if something like that happened in the S&P 500 or the American stock markets, and certainly it could happen, could you ride it out for 35 years? And how old would you be in 35 years? And when I say ride it out, that means you can't take any money out of it for 35 years. Well, Ralph, that's your entire retirement. 35 years from now, we'll probably both be dead, and as will many of our listeners. So the point is, the ride it out notion is a bunch of hooey. Think about this. If you're making a withdrawal on your investment accounts of, let's say, 4% per year, you're taking out 4% of your value each year. And if the market happens to go down 10% this year, well, you didn't go down, your value on your account then actually went down 14%. You lost the 10% that the market took away, and then the 4% that you took away. So you're down 14%. Now, let's say the same thing happens the next year, because things like that do happen 2 years in a row. Now, in 2 years, you're down 28%. There's no way that you can come back from that, because the next year, Ralph, you're going to pull out another 4%. Now we're down to 32%. And so the market has to come back roaring to ever get you back to zero. You can't wait it out. It won't work. So first thing to do is don't get yourself in that shape. Be sure you have a plan that has considered income for all of your years of retirement up until the end of your life. Every year we can see what your income is going to be. We have on our strategic plan. And then once we have that mapped out, we can rest a lot more confidently knowing what protection looks like. Now, Ralph, you asked me, now I'm getting to your answer. You said, Barry, where do people put money that's not so protected? Well, a lot of people think bonds are where you put money that's to be protected. When the stock market gets too dicey, they call it the flight to quality, and people move over into bonds. But what you got to realize is those bonds go up and down in value, and they fluctuate with interest rates. And right now we have a strong interest rate fluctuating environment. And I think that the odds of your bonds losing money at some point are great. We're not anti-bonds. We just have better tools than bonds. So why would you want to use a bond, which is a great 1940 or 50 model tool, when this is the year 2025 and the world has changed a lot and there are a lot better strategies than just using bonds?
So what are some of the common ways that you can help us find the choices we have for protected income in retirement? How do you guide us through that process, especially with your 6 steps to retirement confidence?
Well, Ralph, there are any number of ways, 3 primarily, that most people depend on for protected retirement income. And those 3 ways either involve insurance companies or, in some cases, big banks, or in some cases, just securities vehicles that are constructed in the open marketplace. And any of the 3 of those can work for a specific person. So we just kind of show them the 3 different options and let them pick the one that is most comfortable to them. Some people like to use annuities, and annuities are very safe and they're very effective. When I say they're very safe, I should say they're very safe actually comparison to banks. People always love the safety of banks because they're backed by the FDIC. What they don't realize is the FDIC on their website actually has a graph that shows the number of banks that fail each year compared to the number of insurance companies that fail each year. And it's laughable, the difference. Insurance companies are comparatively, according to that graph, even safer than FDIC-insured banks. And that's what the FDIC's website information says on it. So the point is, some people use annuities to get that done. Now, some people, Ralph, are allergic to annuities. They hate them. They hate insurance companies, don't want anything to do with them. I understand that. And if that's your story, there are other options that are available to you. We can use big banks to do the same kind of work and protect your income. Sometimes we can even get that income protected using FDIC insurance. And yet still get better rates than bank rate CDs or something of that nature. And then we've got vehicles in the open marketplace, Ralph, that will guarantee the return of your principal, but will participate in the performance of the stock market up to a certain percentage. And sometimes that is very helpful as well. And those are backed up by the Options Industry Council and the other people who build those kinds of products. So there are lots of different ways to get the problem solved. You just need to learn what's out there, and you need to pick the one that's easiest for you. And we kind of try to help people figure out which one's most comfortable. It's like trying on shoes. Is this one good on your foot? Walk around a little bit. What do you think? If it doesn't fit right, we'll fit something else under your foot.
Yeah, too tight or too loose. I'm thinking of an Easter nest egg hunt. Barry, finding those eggs and protected income. Barry can help you find it, folks. Give him a call. Text visit today. Call tomorrow. 417-200-3500. Time for the news right here on KSGF. And we'll be back after Town Hall News with the next part of our show. This is Ralph Hipp with Barry Watts. You're listening to Watts on Wealth.
Uncertain about your retirement future? Let Barry Watts help you retire with certainty. Schedule a meeting by texting VISIT to 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. Retirement Planning Made Simple with Barry Watts. His kit includes a retirement income planning booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, and more. Get your Wealth Care Kit by texting KIT to 417-200-3500. Text KIT to 417-200-3500.
All righty, glad you're back with us, and along with J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. This is Ralph Hipp, and our radio show is Watts on Wealth. That's the name of our TV show, the name of Barry's website, and the name of Barry's book. When you text the word book, you'll get a copy, and when you meet with him, he'll sure sign it for you. We're talking about protected income and the crazy financial environment we have going on this spring and summer. And Barry, getting back to it here, what challenges do we face out there in 2025 if our retirement income is termed as maybe money instead of protected income? What's the difference in protected and maybe?
Well, Ralph, how would you like to breathe maybe oxygen? I mean, the simple fact is there are things that we have to have in life, and we have to have oxygen. And I need to know that every breath is going to draw oxygen into my lungs and not something that will kill me. Similarly, our life has to be sustained by money, and I need to know that my money is solid and reliable and dependable and not maybe money. I may have some, I may not, depending on what happens. And that's the problem with trusting the stock market totally. I'm a stock market guy. I've been doing this for 32 years. We work heavily in the markets each day. But for a retirement planning purpose, we have to use protections, and those protections are to take our maybe money and turn it into solid money that we can depend on. Otherwise, you wind up having to go back to work later in retirement, and that just isn't sufficient. It's not what most people are pursuing, and we don't want our clients to experience that. We want them to step into retirement confident that they have enough income to last them all the way to age 100.
We're trying to help you figure out the right option financially for your family in the environment we have going on right now. And let's talk about analyses. I guess that's the plural if you do more than one for us, analyses. Can you do an annuity analysis for us? Talk about a little Easter nest egg. We've got this much in this egg, this much in that one. And you can analyze that for us, Barry?
Well, Ralph, when you come to see us at the Wealth Care Corporation, we analyze everything for you. We analyze each and every investment that you hold, including your annuity accounts. And yes, we can do annuity analysis for you. Here's one of the problems with annuities. People don't understand them. They don't know what they really have. Annuities can be structured as very complex vehicles. And sometimes when they offer you the stuff that true, like a guaranteed growth rate of 7% a year every year for the rest of your life or until you're 80 years old or something like that. Well, that is an annuity product that, first of all, it wasn't really guaranteeing that. That was a sleight of hand when they expressed that to you. And that particular product won't give you that guarantee on your base annuity account for that period of time. So the point is there are a lot of things about annuities that people just don't understand. People buy an annuity thinking it's a safe way to do it, but if it was a variable annuity, it may be attached to the stock market and therefore it floats up and down with stocks. What people don't realize is that any annuity requires you to pay tax on the earnings at ordinary income rates. So if you put in $500,000 into an annuity and you just let it sit there for years and years and years and years and years, and then you sell it out and take your money out, you got $1 million. So now you had $500,000 worth of growth. We have to pay tax on that, not as a capital gain like most investors would, like you would have if you'd had that money grow in Walmart stock, for example, or O'Reilly Automotive, or something like that. Instead, you will pay tax at ordinary income rates, which are over twice as high as capital gains rates. So that's why you have to be careful with annuities. Annuities are very good vehicles. I love annuities. They do great work for people if they're used properly in the proper place and the right amount. So we'll help you understand the annuity you've got. We'll talk to you about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what it'll do, what it won't do, what you need to be aware of, and what your options are. And if there are options for you, we're happy to help you find something else that maybe a shoe that fits your foot a little better.
Back to our shoe analogy there. Is the shoe too loose or too tight? And you can get it just right with Barry. Once again, his number 417-200-3500. That's the number to text visit today. Call tomorrow. 417 all around Springfield, 200-3500. On those analyses, Barry, I really should get in a mention about our market risk. How much risk are we willing to take? Is the shoe from the market too loose or too tight? And you can do a risk portfolio analysis for us as well, right?
So, Ralph, one of the things that we do when people come to see us is we help them figure out what the right amount of risk they are willing to take is. And you can't just ask that question. We've got a process of questions that we ask that kind of help dial in and triangulate that from different perspectives so we can figure out what's really comfortable for them. And then we express it in a number. And we liken that number to speed on the highway, and we'll say, okay, what you said is you're comfortable with your money traveling at 48 miles an hour. Now, let's look at all the investments you hold and let's see how fast your investments are going. Oh my goodness, they're going 63 miles an hour. At 63 miles an hour, there's a 95% chance in the next 6 months you could lose this much or make that much, depending on how the markets move. Is that comfortable for you over the next 6 months? No, that's more risk than I said I wanted. I want to go 48 miles an hour. All right, then we need to make an adjustment. So everyone should know what their personal risk speed is and should know what the risk speed is on their portfolio. Often, Ralph, we take people down into the 30s and actually reduce their risk profoundly through the use of protected principal. That's one of the important tools that we use to help people moderate risk and tolerate turbulent markets like this. Because if you don't have all your money riding in the stock market, then you don't have to be as concerned or worry as much about what the markets are doing from moment to moment.
Yeah. I want to discuss Social Security next, Barry, and wherever the presidential term goes, if it's 2 more terms of President Trump or a Trump and a J.D. Vance or a term of Trump and someone else, about the length of 2 presidential terms, 8 more years, we're really going to be having a serious discussion in this country about whether Social Security is even going to be around anymore. We don't want to forget that it's still a very big part of the discussion in 2025 on our retirement income. So let me shift gears, and we need to think about our whole income picture before we decide when to start claiming our Social Security benefits. If we are in the last 8 years, when do we decide when to claim it with all the changes going on politically, and are we nearing the end of the road on Social Security?
Well, Ralph, I think you went back to your old media roots from your broadcast news days and fired up the news ticker across the bottom of the screen and thought, let's inflame people. Because the fact is, Social Security is going to be there in 8 years. It's not going away. Now, we don't have enough money in the Social Security Trust Fund to pay the bills, so something is going to have to happen. But my point to you is I am dead certain that something will happen. That something may be tax increases. In fact, I think that that's the most likely outcome is tax increases. So your Social Security check, I think, is going to come. It's going to hit your pocket. But what's going to happen is they're going to have to raise enough money from other sources to keep your Social Security check coming. So robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking it out of the left side of your pocket pants and putting it back into the right side. But I think you'll get your Social Security check. That's the big message that I want you to have. You said there that I think is absolutely not true. You said maybe we have another 4 years of Trump after this one. No, we're not going to have another 4 years of Trump. It's not possible.
That's not going to happen.
4 years of Trump. That is a bunch of baloney, and Trump is stoking that fire himself. I don't know why he does that. Lord knows. Can you imagine being God up there in heaven holding your hand in your head saying, "Oh, Donald, would you quit messing with that stuff?" But you know what? I bet he says that about Barry and Ralph, too, in different ways.
That's right.
And so I'm a supporter of President Trump. I think a lot of his policies and what he's gotten put in place, I think he's headed the right direction for us, even with regard to Social Security. So how do you select Social Security? Let me tell you this. You mostly don't. You let us help guide you in that process. We have a Social Security specialist in our office. His name is Jeremy. And just this week, Jeremy did an analysis for a client of ours who is 64, who was planning on taking her Social Security when she got to be 67. But this particular client has adopted and is raising a granddaughter years old. And so what she didn't know was if she would go ahead and take Social Security now, Social Security will also pay her and pay her husband for having a granddaughter in their home. That's just the way Social Security is built. And so in her case, we worked out the math and we figured out she wants to take her Social Security now at age 64 because Social Security is also going to be paying for that child 2 different checks, one to grandma and one to grandpa. And she wouldn't have known that if she hadn't sat with us and we hadn't talked with her and taught her about those particular principles. So the easiest way to handle that, Ralph, is just let us do a Social Security analysis for you. It's a part of our planning process, the 6-step planning process. When we do the income analysis, we analyze Social Security. We figure out when you ought to claim, what your options are, your best options, and we rank them 1, 2, and 3, and we let you pick the one that fits your personal appetite.
And to get that going, friends, give them a call, 417-200-3500. Where are you in 2025 financially? Barry can really guide you in the right direction. You may already be going in the right direction. He can certainly put up the guardrails where we stay where we are, having your retirement in the Ozarks look the way you want it to. Well, I wish we had a study I could quote to you, Barry, from Missouri State, but this is from Boston College, and they found 1/3 on a couple of things. About 30% of us wrongly assume we're ready for retirement in the household, and about 32% of high-earning households are a little overconfident. When you talk to people around Springfield, do they feel that they're ready for retirement, and right now they're pretty confident? What do you think is the mood out there? Now, then we'll wrap this up on this topic.
Well, I think the unfortunate thing, Ralph, is the turbulence that we have in the markets causes everybody to question whether or not they're where they thought they were. So the answers that you might have gotten a few weeks ago are totally different than the answers that you will get today. I do see a lot of people who, I don't know if they have their head in the sand, they just aren't paying attention. And retirement is a really, really big deal. And if you're 60 years old and you've only got $100,000 saved for retirement, what are you thinking? And, we have people all the time show up in maybe they've got, $250,000 saved for retirement, and they want $15,000 a month starting at age 62. And they want it to last until they're 100 years old. I don't have to do that math. It's not going to work. You can't do it. That's not possible. So my point is, people don't even know how to think about this. And so at least when you get a retirement income plan designed for you, like we do for people here at the Wealth Care Corporation, you're able to have some posts driven in the ground, some stakes that you can then make your judgments from and determine it from. And that helps you to know whether or not you're really going to be able to retire and stay retired. I do think higher earning households sometimes can have a habit of not paying attention. The higher earning can mean higher spending. And we see some of those from time to time who they've been living a great life, but they're not going to have a great retirement because they haven't put enough money away for the future.
Yeah. Barry, thanks for answering my news questions. Yeah, formerly being with KSPR a long time ago, I guess that asking the news question, doing the news interview never really gets away from you, but appreciate all your answers on that. And we're going to appreciate your answers on questions that people have mailed in to you. We'll get to our popular mailbag segment. This is Ralph Hipp along with Barry Watts on the Watts on Wealth radio show. And watch us on TV. Watch the whole half hour and listen to our whole hour right here on KSGF. So you'll really be firmly in tune with what's going on financially. And we'll keep asking some news questions, but I'll try not to go crazy. Try not to overdo it, Barry. Okay. So we'll get to your questions right after we get to this on the Watts on Wealth radio show.
Barry Watts makes retirement planning easy with his kit, which includes a retirement income planning booklet and key information on taxes, Social Security, and income. Request your Wealth Care Kit by texting KIT to 417-200-3500. Text KIT to 417-200-3500.
Do you think you'll pay lower taxes in retirement? Really? Many people go into retirement assuming that, but end up paying as much, if not more, in taxes than when they were working. How taxes can affect your retirement is one of the chapters in Watts on Wealth, the latest book written by local tax strategist and retirement designer Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry takes you through the many tax considerations you should make before you retire. To get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, call 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. The book is full of actionable retirement tips and strategies Barry has gathered from his more than 30-year career in helping families just like yours retire successfully. Get your free copy of Watts on Wealth, the book, now by calling 417-200-3500 or go to wattswealth.com. Advisory services provided through Wealthcare Asset Management, LLC.
Retirement planning made simple with Barry Watts. His kit includes a retirement income planning booklet, plus information on taxes, Social Security, and more. Get your Wealth Care Kit by texting KIT to 417-200-3500. Text KIT to 417-200-3500.
Well, time in the final part of Watts on Wealth to go through some of the questions about retirement. Let's open up our Watts on Wealth email inbox to Barry and go over some really good, common, real-life retirement questions. And here's our first one. Barry, I'm about to retire later this year, and I'm wondering, should I pay off my home mortgage first?
Well, Ralph, my first response to that question is to ask a question and simply say, why?
Good
why
question.
Are you wanting to pay off your home first?
Yeah, a lot of variables, too.
Well, that's the point. You can't answer that question in a vacuum. There are so many other things that have to be considered along the way. I mean, Ralph, last year my money made north of 20%. And so if I can make 20% on my money, why would I want to take my money and pay off a 3% home loan or even a 5% home loan? Now, the answer could be, well, you're not going to make 20% on your money every year. And you're absolutely right. You're not. There's no guarantee of that. But long term, we know that invested money does very well. So I don't personally feel any compulsion to get the home paid off, the home mortgage paid off. Now, I recognize when I tell you that I'm also swimming upstream against an emotional thing because Grandpa taught you to pay it off and pay it off soon, pay it off quickly and be done. And Grandpa wasn't wrong. And Dave Ramsey says it's a good idea. And I don't think Dave Ramsey's wrong either. So ultimately, it's an individualized decision. There is a way to look at it emotionally, and the emotional answer is always yes, pay the house off. And there's a way to look at it mathematically, and the math may say, no, there's really not a need to pay the house off, and here's why. And you just have to decide which of those two approaches you're most comfortable with. That's the best advice I could give. So we have some clients who pay their house off because they want to get that behind them, and we have some clients who continue to have a mortgage into retirement, and it doesn't negatively affect them. So don't be lost and think that that's the one thing that you must do, because that's not necessarily the case. The mortgage can be accommodated in your overall retirement plan without any problems.
Well, the big 4-letter word this year, Barry, has been Roth, R-O-T-H, and it's a good 4-letter word, especially on a Sunday. This person writes, I've been hearing a lot about Roth IRAs. Should I do a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA? And does that define a Roth conversion for us, Barry?
Well, the answer is you should do a Roth IRA. What's the next question? I mean, it's not that simple. I'm being jestful.
Once again, have that
is
individual
jestful a word?
conversation.
Can I be jestful? I don't know if that's a word or not. Anyway, unless you're going to have a lower tax bracket in retirement, and most people aren't, then you do not want to do traditional. You're going to be in a higher tax bracket. So the blanket answer is always consider your Roth first. That is kind of the guidance that we tend to give to people. And should we convert traditional IRAs that we already have to Roth IRAs? And the answer to that question is maybe. Many people do convert and should convert. There is certainly good reason to do that. And we've got a process we go through where we show them the math of what happens if they do convert, the math of what happens if they don't convert, how much the tax implications are going to be if they convert from traditional IRA and have to pay the taxes now. And, it really just becomes a math question. And sometimes people say, nah, I don't want to do it. And sometimes people say, absolutely, I want to do it. Help me do it as much as possible, as fast as possible. And we accommodate either philosophy at our place, because our job isn't to tell you what you have to do. Our job is to answer your questions and give you appropriate light on the subject so that you can make the decision that you are most comfortable with, because you're the person who has to go home and sleep with the decision that you've made.
Right. Barry, I'd love to ask you about, and you can address these also, the risks that come with a Roth conversion. There could be more held in taxes, and you may lose some certain tax deductions and some tax credits. There could be higher taxes on what you get from Social Security and higher premiums you'd have to pay for Medicare, correct? There could be some potholes out there.
There can be if you do it the wrong way, Ralph.
Yeah.
But for example, you said something about the risk of them withholding your taxes. Well, no, we have people who do conversions who don't withhold any tax, and we have people who withhold all of the tax. So you get to choose how much you withhold.
Okay.
And my advice to you is, if you have another pool of money to pay the taxes from other than IRA money, so like you've got just regular money in a bank account or maybe a brokerage account where you're trading stocks or bonds, or you got mutual funds or something like that, it's not tax qualified money, meaning IRA kind of money. Pay the taxes from that account, because that other account is a taxable account. You're paying tax on it every year. So there's one of the potholes you mentioned that's not really a pothole. You just need to be sure you have a plan for how you're going to pay those taxes. And you need to be age 59 and a half in order to pay the taxes out of the converted money, because otherwise you will face a penalty when you pay the taxes out of the converted money. So certainly when you take money out of your IRA and move it into your Roth IRA, it's going to cause you to pay more on your IRMA, potentially. It depends on what the math is, but pay more for Medicare this next year, and you have to be aware of that. That's one of the costs of moving the money. But Ralph, in our family, the way we looked at it is we're not really managing money for ourselves as individuals. We're managing family money. My parents' money, that generation, flows to me and to my children. My money flows to my children, to grandchildren I haven't seen yet. So we're managing wealth for the family, and we make the decision about paying the taxes now or paying the taxes later in relation to where the tax rates are now, but also in relation to the family members and where they are in income and how much tax they will have to pay. I'm in the highest tax bracket possible. My brother is as well. So it makes sense for my mother and dad, who are not in the highest tax bracket, to pay the taxes on the conversion rather than letting us inherit that money and having to pay it ourselves. And those are just some important ways to think about some of the potholes that can come down the pipeline as you deal with Roth conversions. But we help people to think about that and help them to make the right decision. That's our job at the Wealth Care Corporation.
Yeah. So if a Roth conversion is going to be part of your conversation, Barry's gone over some of the choices, some of the options, some of the questions you should ask, and ask those and get with Barry. You and Barry, one-on-one, hopefully two-on-one with you and your spouse. Have the conversation and your family's future directed in the right place. So give him a call, 417-200-3500. Barry Watts at Springfield's Wealth Care Corporation. Okay, here's another one. I believe we have time for one more here, Barry. I've heard when you delay your Social Security, your benefits will grow at 8%. Sounds really good to me, especially right now. Should I let my Social Security grow since that's a sure thing? Or is it a sure thing? We discussed some of this earlier.
Well, the answer is I don't even know your name, so I can't give you guidance on whether you should let your Social Security grow. But the simple fact is that's a different response for everyone. Some people should let their Social Security grow. There is no doubt. Some people should take it now, like the lady I just referenced earlier in the show who was 64, going to take it at 67, till we suddenly told her she could actually get Social Security income on her grandchild who was living with her, and so she needed to take Social Security immediately. So I can't answer the question without knowing more about your situation, and that's why it's so important to sit down with a qualified retirement specialist who does nothing every day but work in this arena answering these kinds of questions, helping people to make the right decision. And that's what we do for people who call us at the Wealth Care Corporation. We'd invite you to call today. The number is 417-200-3500. 417-200-3500. And we will definitely schedule an appointment to talk with you and see how we can best help you.
Hey, to our listeners getting ready for church, if you're almost 80 and you're texting, Barry and I are proud of you. And we have a little marching instruction for you. Text the word visit right now before church. Text visit to Barry, 417-200-3500, or text the word book, and you'll get a copy of the book, Watts on Wealth. But in addition to hopefully you watching our half-hour TV show on all the Springfield TV channels this morning, or listening to our hour, that'll put the top on our hour here on the radio. We're sure glad you joined us. Barry, do you have any proverbial Watts words of wisdom to close our show today?
Well, it's Easter Sunday, and this is the day we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, literally a dead man coming back to life. And I believe with all of my heart that happened, and my entire hope in this life and in the next one hinges on Jesus having died on the cross to pay for my sins, and on the power of Jesus in the resurrection that will keep me alive into eternity. And Kelly and I were just talking about this last night at supper, actually, and about how, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go, and that's all right. Everything's going to be absolutely fine. I am 100% confident of that. And so I would wish that confidence for you. I believe that can be found in a relationship with God through His Son, Jesus. And on this Easter Sunday morning, I would encourage you to hustle yourself out of bed. Find yourself a church where they teach about Jesus and what He did for you on the cross. And listen deeply, think carefully, and act devotedly.
Barry, thank you so much, and good words to get us off to our Easter services today. Thank you, my friends, for spending an hour with us on this special day, and we'll be back again next Sunday right here, same time, same station. For Barry Watts and the terrific team at the Wealth Care Corporation, I'm Ralph Hipp, and that's it for our radio, Watts on Wealth. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan, to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan? Give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.